Hey everyone, this is Bruce from Identifying God's Best. It is good to see you here once again. Welcome to another episode of Guy Talk. Today we'll be addressing the question, what not to do on dates for guys. So to get us started, I have 3 tips that I want to offer to you, things not to do on a date. The first is a very simple and easy tip that unfortunately a lot of Christian men, especially on the first few dates, are prone to fall into and into doing. And the tip that I have for you is don't freeze. Simply don't freeze. I've heard so many stories of so many dates that have gone wrong because the guy just in the middle of the date freezes up and don't know what to do, and it becomes a complete disaster in the dates. Men, think carefully as you approach each date in terms of how you plan and envision the date to turn out. The different activities that you're gonna have, the different food you're gonna have. The more prepared and planned out the date is, the less likely it is for you to freeze. And just pause and think about it for a second. This is the girl that you've just asked out, that you're really interested in discovering whether or not she truly is God's best for you. The last thing you want to do is to freeze and to not know how to continue a conversation, to get stuck on a particular decision, and then just completely ruin the date. So don't do that. Put in the time and effort into the preparation. Think carefully about the good questions that you do want to ask her on a first date. And even as you're engaged with her in the date itself, whether it's doing certain activity or having a nice little dinner or lunch together, keep the conversation going. Be invested in her. Be interested in her life. Be interested in who she is. Be excited to learn about her. Show that excitement out. Don't just stand there as an ice block, completely frozen, unable to react to anything that she's saying or doing, or unable to do anything else because you're just out of ideas. So don't freeze. That's the first tip. Second tip that I have for the men out there is don't be a baby. Don't be a baby. And this is actually drawing this principle even from the general encouragement that Paul has to the Corinthians, to the Corinthian Christian in 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verse 13, where Paul exhorts the Christians there to be courageous, to act like men, to stand firm in the faith, and to be alert. I've mixed the orders a little bit, but the verse is there for you to take a look, right? The idea is so many times I think men can become such babies with their girlfriends or whoever it is that they're dating with. Don't fall into the trap of doing so because it makes you look weak. It doesn't display biblical leadership. Act like a man. Be masculine, be a leader, be courageous, be bold, be confident in the Lord, be alert of your surroundings, of the environment that the both of you are in when it comes to a particular date. Is it too dangerous for her? Is it not really helpful for her purity? And be thoughtful about these things and take leadership. Act on these things, these little dangers, little red flags that you see on a date. Oh, maybe that's not a good idea to participate in this particular event because of X, Y, and Z. Then take that leadership and direct her elsewhere and still have an amazing time together as you guys have a date, right? Stand firm in the faith. Know what your convictions are. Don't back down on your convictions. Don't make compromises within dates just because you're trying to win her over. That's the last thing you can do as a man to win someone over, is by making compromises and not sticking to your principles and not sticking to the convictions that you have from the word. So act like men. This is not the tip to like be masculine in the secular sense where you're to work out 24/7 and get super buff and ripped and speak in a deeper voice. That's not at all what we're talking about here. Is the masculinity and the leadership biblically demonstrated is extremely attractive. So don't back down from it. Don't be scared of it. Take the initiative. Be a leader. Be a man. And lastly, the third tip that I have for the men is don't touch a woman. Don't touch a woman. So you might be thinking like, whoa, don't touch a woman. What do you mean? You know, this is the girl that I'm going out with. I'm just hoping to pursue a relationship with. Like, I can't even poke at her at any given point. You know, I can't give her a handshake. I can't give her high fives. None of that. That's not the touch that I'm talking about. But we're referring back to 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 1, where Paul writes to the Corinthians that he doesn't permit any single man or any man in general to touch a woman. We have to really dig a little bit deeper into the Greek word to understand what that touch means. The touch in the Greek is hopto, and I may be mispronouncing it, so I apologize. The touch there is hopto, and it basically means any touch that can exert an influence. It has a modifying influence, has a changing influence to the other individual. So within the context, a lot of times in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 1, a lot of Bibles would translate that word into sexual relations. because obviously sexual relations and physical intimacy, there's a lot of touching involved, and that does change, and it does have a modifying influence on both parties, the man and the woman. But I don't think it does it justice to its word, because it's not just talking about sex and physical intimacy that has a modifying influence, which is true. But what Paul here is warning in 1 Corinthians chapter 7 to the Corinthians is, don't touch a woman in such a way, in any way, that can change her behavior, that can change her emotions, that can manipulate her and hold her captive into something that is not actually there, right? Into a false commitment when it's not really grounded in anything to begin with. This is where you have to exercise a lot of wisdom and discernment. I know a lot of men, for example, who would have a strict boundary of not even holding hands or hugging for anything longer than, 1 second. There's a reason why these men are setting up these boundaries. It's not just because they're being pharisaical or legalistic, but they know this is where they're most likely to be prone to be tempted to. This is where they may, if they were to advance any further, they may lose that self-control and do things that they'll regret for the rest of their lives. Also be considerate of the woman that you're dating as well, in terms of what she's comfortable with. Because you know what? Something as simple as holding hands might not get you going, but holding hands might get the girl that you're going out with thinking all sorts of weird things. Oh my goodness, he's holding my hands, he's doing this and that, giving me a hug for 2.5 seconds longer than it should be. Like, what's going on? It's gonna have that modifying influence in her, in that it unhealthily excites her emotionally in such a way that she is more committed than she should be, right? So physical intimacy, all that is a blessing from the Lord that can be enjoyed in marriage. But then we just need to be extremely, extremely careful in the dating process, and especially even more so to the engagement. Even when you're engaged, the command here that you see in 1 Corinthians chapter 7 is, don't touch a woman, don't touch your fiance in such a way that will have a modifying influence to her. Not just in the realm of sex, but a lot of things leading up to sex is already changing your brain chemicals and your brain waves and all that stuff that's happening. So just be very careful with that. So those are the 3 tips. First, very general, very brief, especially when you're going out the first few dates. Don't freeze. Keep going. Keep being invested and interested in the conversation and the activities. Be invested into her life. Show that excitement. Second tip is, don't be a baby. Be a biblically sound man. Don't make compromises. Stick with your convictions. Be alert of your surroundings. Don't put yourselves in dangerous situations. And lastly, don't touch a woman in such a way that will have a modifying, changing influence in herself, in her emotions. So those are the 3 tips that I have for you, what not to do on dates and in general, just in your dating life. Hopefully that's helpful for you. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button and make sure you like our video as well, so that this content can be shared to many more Christian men who are looking for counsel and how to date biblically. So thank you for watching. Have a great day, everyone.